Keep running!
That didn't happen.
Morning and welcome to me not knowing how to do intros. Prince of Persia already existed in 1989. It was called a cinematic experience by some, but I never played it, at least I never got far, since the movement is like a dump truck stopping and going and I can't handle laggy controls. But in 2003 they released a new proper one and it was so good that all games going forward copied the platforming parts, though streamlining the climbing into a straight line. I played the Steam copy and without doing really anything to it, it ran fantastic the whole way through. Except for the fog. The fog effects are really intense, but you can switch fog off in the settings, so it's no big deal. And the resolution was capped at a crisp 1024 by 768. So what's this game about? A big bad totally not evil wizard betrays his ruler by convincing another ruler to ransack his kingdom. During that, the prince gets a dagger which later leads to the prince releasing the sands of time upon everyone. Or in other words, the sand virus has been released and you must now go on an adventure on top of many platforms, poles, ledges and spikes with your trusty sidekick Farah, who is always there.
Here I am!
There she is. To somehow make things right again with a helpful dose of time manipulation. And I must say, the game still manages to look pretty. There really aren't any textures or effects which stick out, or if there are, I didn't notice them. Though it is cool to see how the game handles level segments which aren't right next to each other. I fall down here and then get out over there. But now somehow the hole is closed. It's a bit basic, but it's cool to see that there's continuity in the game world. The game's visual side has that Disney feel to it. Everything is colorful and saturated and it's definitely stylized with a tasteful bloom effect, allowing it to better withstand the effects of time. Considering that it has been 20 years, the game looks absolutely gorgeous. And the audio is great. The prince shuffling his feet about when wall running is oddly satisfying. It's like you're listening to the pitter-paddle of feet, giving the parkour some weight. The music is suitably Persian influenced and at points it straight up swaps into metal. For whatever reason, he rips his shirt off. Likewise, all the contraptions and traps have suitable sounds which aren't too heavy or light. The sound occasionally stops and then goes, since I guess it's triggered by the camera angle, and the sound pickup has a whistle sound which can get quite bad. At the end there's quite a long segment which perfectly recreates tinnitus. Or maybe that's just my hearing loss. The prince sounds fittingly young and full of himself, and as the story goes on his voice changes and the actor does a really good job of highlighting that.
Oh! Have you been waiting here all this time? I didn't realize you meant these baths. I went to the other baths.
Though to be honest, I did think it was Obi-Wan talking. And the same also applies to Farah. She has no issues with standing up for herself and has a lot of character and charm to her. She responds to you falling and slipping. As a result, it's fun listening to them talk. The two have great chemistry.
Well, what are you waiting for?
I'm afraid. What if I get into trouble and you have to come chasing after me?
Please.
Do you mean to say you actually need my help?
Yes.
Oh well, in that case.
The levels themselves are varied and take you through the entire castle as you will be visiting the baths, the prisons, gigantic fucking bedroom. Why would you ever want a multi-story high bedroom with a bed the size of some smaller apartments? You get a kink for being looked at. We visit the libraries and some unique places like the castle defense room, which houses the castle's defense matrix system, or something, which you have to prime. It's great fun. The guard tells you if you're doing something right or wrong.
Just one more!
Also, you have a handy map. Another one is later on. As you reach the bottom of a really long spiraling stairwell, you enter a circular room with 8 doors. Those are teleporters which you have to take in the correct order. Farah is somewhere here taking a bath, and so of course the motivation is high.
Where are you?
Take me in your arms.
It seems tricky until you realize that you can follow the sound of the water, and the reward is quite literally sex. You know, I thought it was gonna be some ghost, demon, something tricking you, but no! Boobies! This place seems to be connected to the health upgrade fountains which exist in this vast empty chasm. What is this place, and why is the prince willing to drink out of anything? At one point he drinks from the pavilion, which is most likely rainwater. After sipping the water, you wake up outside with the entrance now gone and your health boosted. At one point the prince tries to ask Farah to come along, but she refuses, and once back, for her, we never left.
Come with me, please.
You will.
Farah, how long have you been gone?
Gone? What are you talking about?
Never mind.
The game does a fantastic job at making the gaming aspects like the health upgrade secrets be part of the world itself. You save in these sand vortexes, and when in them, you see glimpses of the future which can actually help you figure stuff out. A pretty cool mechanic made cooler by Farah being able to see us do it and even being worried about it. It even plays into the story as the prince makes the future happen by trying to avoid it. And once again, the two of them make for a great combo. Farah as a companion never gets in the way and her presence is always welcome. Her main duty is to be the one with the brains and to go through cracks. The game even itself makes fun of it. I mean, you wish you could go through those pocket dimensions.
Let's see where this corridor goes. Alright, you can take the crack.
See you soon! I'm up here!
But what truly makes the game the best and awesome is the platforming, the acrobatics. It oozes of coolness. Instead of just jumping over a gap like a normal person, you wall run over the gap through boss saws. Instead of just stabbing the enemy, you do a small pirouette and dramatically land the dagger in the enemy's chest like it's a final scene from fucking Hamlet, and you're putting a finer point on it. Climbing is what really ultimately carries this game, and unlike in newer games where it's mainly a cinematic point A to point B type of a deal, here the climbing is an actual obstacle needing to be figured out. And you're not going in blind. At the start of every segment, the camera sweeps around, giving you like a bird's eye view of the level. This reminds me of actual climbing, where you would usually pre-scout the path you're going to already take, since nothing is more fun than jumping on a pipe, which has already given up on life. So it has a slower and more methodical feel to it, as you'll often hang about looking for where to jump next. For that, you can even change the camera view to either bird's eye or first person mode to have a better look. Sometimes the camera freaks out when you try to manually control it and it begins swooping. There's a lot of swooping. Not sure why it does that, but for the most part it mostly wasn't an issue. And certain design choices help that. When having to wall run and jump to a pole in the distance, there are shadows on the wall. Or when on a pole, you can only move in 4 directions, meaning it's impossible to fly off to visit your grandma in the depths as you take the 45-degree detour route. But even then, rewind is here to help. When you inevitably fuck up, instead of redoing everything, you can rewind time up to 10 seconds. Not only is it incredibly useful, but also incredibly cool. It was an idea from the game's director Patrice Desilets, I hope he's French, who didn't want to replay levels in Donald Duck, going quicker due to one mistake. My kind of man. I'm here to play a game, not do a recital. It's not bad redoing bits when they are quick, but when the game is slow, it just disincentivizes risk-taking and exploration because no one wants to spend 5 minutes slowly doing nothing. Rewind uses sand tanks, and you can only rewind as far back as this circle here allows you to. Once out, it's game over. They don't regenerate passively, and you either have to finish off enemies or collect sand gushes, which refill all of it. And if you collect 8 of them, you can get an extra sand slab for a total of 8. There's even a neat power-up animation. Rewind allows you to better enjoy the platforming by minimizing frustration by allowing you to focus on exploring and playing the game. And the cherry on top of all this awesome amazing stuff is the prince itself, as his movements and animations and how he interacts with environment are just so cool. His animations are so good and fluid. They're like a walking action set piece. And speaking of action, it's not good. The combat is boring, it's overly simplistic, and yet it's also hard in annoying ways. Sands of Times is, ironically enough, stuck in time between beat-em-ups with their buffet of faces to smash, and yet using a more slower methodical 1v1 style of fighting. The result is the game throwing literally dozens of identical enemies at you who lack so much identity that they just get color swapped. You only fight 4 enemies at a time, and the moment you kill one, another one spawns instantly until you finally kill the tens of enemies. This has also the effect of making you feel like you're not making progress. There's no corpses, as you have to finish them up with a dagger. At first it's kind of cool as the prince does his dancing, but by the time you knife your 100th enemy, it becomes a chore. And since you're vulnerable during it, it's an annoying one. And though the enemies don't attack you during it, if you accidentally time it wrong after patiently waiting, you will get hit, and you'll fall to the floor. The animation for getting up, which is also quite long and has no invulnerability frames. At some points, the enemies can start a literal chain gang on you, stun locking you to death. It would be less of an issue, but the enemies are always up your ass, as all of them teleport to you, and these guys are pretty wide-shouldered as well. And though you can vault over for cool kills, most enemies are immune to it. They'll push you away. So you start doing the wall push attack over and over and over again. Or you will if you play it optimized. But if you're me, and I'm dumb, you'll be bashing at them till they let you in. Most enemies have infinite block, or use the dagger to sandify them and you can then finish them off. But that also has a long animation. And Farah will be with you for most fights. She fires the bow and can hit you. In my case, right after they joked about it. Ow! You can also die, and friendly fire is the thing. But she's tanky enough and far away enough that mostly it just means that occasionally you have to slap an enemy off of her. She can also make enemies vulnerable, making her quite useful. There are also animals, bats, beetles and vultures. They aren't enemies, they are glorified speed bumps. The bats and vultures just make you stand in one spot waiting to lazily hit them, and for the beetles you just smash the attack key. It would be a miracle if you died to them. So I found myself not being able to get into any rhythm. There's not enough things to play tactically, so you can spam the one move for 100 plus times. Yet you also can't mindlessly smash them either. I found myself just getting irritated every time a fight happened. The highs of the platforming made the lows of the combat just that more painful. Even the rewind seems to become lame when fighting, as it feels slower and less efficient. Though you can blade storm, which is pretty cool. It oddly enough punishes you for exploring. You see, it uses every power and sand tank that you have, and they have to be in equal amounts to use, meaning the more you got, the more effort to do it again, making it harder to use the more you explore. So there are some odd choices here. If you want to play this game blind, then this is the spot you should skip. The story isn't something grand, but it is charming and a fun adventure to go on. It feels like watching one of those old Disney movies as a child. The entire story in the present is being retold by the future prince, who is recounting the past events of the game to past Farah. So it's one of the stories where the game over screen is the narrator getting confused as to why they died if they're still alive.
That's not how it happened.
It's a fun way of telling stories and can add a lot of charm. And the prince is a much more reliable narrator than you from Call of Juarez, Gunslinger, where the level itself changes as your memory refreshes. The entire story starts because the vizier is dying, and of course, as an old man, he wants immortality. For that, he needs the sands, and you just so happen to be passing through, and so you just so happen to destroy an entire kingdom. Persia was scary. During the siege, the prince instead gets the sands, and the vizier is left coughing blood. As you reach where you were actually supposed to go, the kingdom of Assad, the vizier manages to play on the prince's arrogance and gets him to release the sands from the hourglass, turning everyone into monsters, despite Farah loudly protesting.
No! Stop!
Is it meant to do this? Alicia Sigataha!
She's here because your dad killed her dad and she was going to be a concubine for your dad's friend. So it really is a wonder that she is as friendly as she is. And so with the outbreak of the sand virus in Assad City, the prince must work together with Farah, a black-haired woman who knows more, can get to surprising places, and for whom the prince will develop feelings for. In the beginning, we circle around to get to Farah, and although mistrustful of her, the prince still feels compelled to protect her. And then we have to kill her dad. Farah tries to console the prince, but the prince is being a bit of an ass. However, they form an alliance and begin going through the castle with Farah's ability to squeeze through cracks and the prince's to jump real high.
Look, a crack!
We spot early on birds carrying the hourglass to a tower, and so we're heading there.
You did it. Thanks!
All the while they are developing mutual respect and even something more for each other, as at point Farah will be caressing the prince's head, taking care of him after he has once again passed out after one of his sand trips.
My love, please don't leave me.
And the prince likewise, in his own juvenile, naive way, as he starts growing up throughout the story, despite trying his darndest to be a dick. Other parts of the prince's dialogue maybe haven't aged that well.
I could marry her. After all, she is a Maharaja's daughter. A conquered one, but still, her blood is royal. Besides, what better way to tame her insolence? It's not so bad for a woman to have a little spirit. It's a challenge.
But the good thing is that the prince is just an immature idiot who grows out of it. And it just feels like he's going through the schoolyard bullying phase for the girl you like rather than an actual dick. Those sentiments are just shallow ideas for him. This is given weight by how the prince talks about the torture chamber.
It was the first time I had seen such devices at close range, close enough to touch. Where were the men whose trade it had been to apply the question, to extract the answer their king sought, if indeed there was one? In the end, they had met the same fate as their victims, guards and prisoners made equal by the sands of time.
His tone and thoughts become much more sober and thoughtful, reflecting also how he is changing and how he is without the fake bravado. You can also stare at Farah, respectfully, at different parts of the story, and both she and the prince will respond differently. When first Farah essentially tells you to piss off,
Stop staring at me.
I wasn't looking at you.
they eventually start flirting and being shy with each other.
Your eyes. They're green.
Are they?
Eventually, the prince and Farah reach the top of the tower where the vizier stored the hourglass. But even as victory is at hand, the prince actually acknowledges that trusting Farah might be dubious. After all, they killed her father and destroyed her home. Why should she help any of them or the prince? It's a fair point and shows both increasing maturity and immaturity in the growing prince. But that moment of hesitation allows the vizier to stop them, plunging them into darkness. The prince is afraid of the dark, but Farah has a story of her secret word.
When I was small, my mother taught me a secret word. She said that when I was afraid, All I had to do was speak that word, and a magic door would open. I've never told that to anybody.
I can see why. It's the most childish thing I've ever heard of. What was the word?
Kakolukiam.
Kakolukia. You did that.
Kakolukium thus somehow opens the door. Then the prince and Farah have sex, after which she steals both the dagger and the sword from the prince and runs away, seemingly leaving him to be killed by the sand monsters who are just right there. I can understand the dagger, but the sword? You get 3 swords in the game. The first one breaks down walls, the second one does that faster, but the last one we're gonna get here, one hits enemies, like actually one hit, no finisher required, and it's every bit as cathartic as it sounds. We run after Farah, but as we arrive, it's too late as she falls down and the prince only barely manages to grab onto the blade of the dagger to hold Farah up. Farah sees that the prince won't let go and sacrifices herself.
Kakolukiam.
Farah, no! No.
By the time the prince gets to her, it's too late. Too much time has passed to rewind. She is dead. And as the prince cries over Farah's body, the vizier gets there and offers eternal power. But the prince refuses and finishes that which he hesitated before. The prince triggered the Great Rewind and now is back before the siege of Farah's home. He rushes to the castle, dagger still in hand, to tell Farah about the treacherous vizier, and it's here technically where the prince tells the entire story during the night, just like Arabian Nights. By morning, the vizier comes there and tries to kill Farah so he can put the blame on the prince. That makes Farah trust us, and after we kill the vizier's 3 clones, he dies in 1 hit. For me, these kinds of endings are bittersweet, since technically you are the only survivor. The Farah you came to know doesn't exist. The experiences you had are now yours to carry, and yours alone. It's really haunting, but I'm prone to overthink such things. And now I finally finished the game that me and my dad started, but we couldn't even get past the beginning, because the wall jumping has a really precise timing. But there's also a secret level featuring the original game where you can run around with the current prince. It's an awesome game with really great climbing, and just like I don't know how to start, I don't know how to finish.